Yes, it's a Bastille Day edition of BloodHorse Monday. Let's go. His name is Sean. I'm Louie.
Great start, Louie.
Fantastic start. Happy Bastille Day to all of the Florals and the Julians of the world. It's so good to be with you to start the horse racing week. Sean Collins up there at Saratoga, Louie Rabaut. Stuck here in a town with no racing at all, Louisville, Kentucky. Right now, 2-hour trip to go watch a horse run in a circle.
That's why I left.
I don't blame you, brother. How's Saratoga treating you besides very wettily?
Yes, it's been very wet the first week that I've been out here, but so far so good. We had some pretty good racing over the weekend, a fantastic edition of the Diana Stakes. You couldn't ask for a more thrilling race than that this past weekend. So far, it's been fun. All the big horses are here. I had one morning the other day. I saw 2 Kentucky Derby winners, so I am very happy out here.
That is a Sean dream, folks, if you are new to the show. Sean Collins of BloodHorse, Louie Rabaut here back in the BloodHorse studios, slumming it here in Kentucky this time of year. I'm just kidding, of course. But, you're up there. You talk about that Diana, and one of the things I texted you after that race was we both got the jockey right in that one, but not the turf horse for our midseason awards that we did last year. But I thought something very interesting that came out of that show actually happened on Facebook. And that is that, Sean, I made the case last week, as did Steve Kornacki, who's obviously much more important than either of us, that Mindframe was horse of the year. And the public has come over the top, swinging just an absolute mace of a medieval weapon and saying, not only is Mindframe not horse of the year, amazing to me. Sovereignty is at what percentage, by the way? 70 what?
He is currently at 76% of the vote in our poll. So most of our watching audience, most of our BloodHorse audience is siding with me in the mid-season awards. That Sovereignty is the mid-season horse of the year.
76% of you are bums. I'll start there. Sean, who's the second horse on that? This is where I might have to quit the show. This is where we're in trouble. I don't know if I can continue. Go ahead.
Yeah. Second place on the list, journalism. The 3-year-olds. They're taking the public's votes this year. That's for sure. So yeah, you and Steve were all over Mindframe. Frank was on Raging Torrent, but it's Sovereignty with a huge lead, and journalism coming in second so far in that poll. But happy to see so many people responding to that poll on our Facebook page. Make sure you keep an eye on that for when we do that stuff like that again in the future, if you're listening to this. And hopefully everybody enjoyed our discussion last week when we went through all those different awards.
Yeah, lots of fun doing that for sure. We appreciate Steve for jumping on. And I'm kidding, of course. Obviously, people should feel how they feel. But it is a reminder, those moments, Sean, you can't do too much work on the Kentucky Derby. You can't do too much work on the Triple Crown. People love it. They really do. It is the locus of our sport. Everything seems to revolve around it. And so I'm not mad about it, especially since, it's early July and we're trying to figure out who it is that would be horse of the year at this point. In your mind, though, Sean, certainly Facebook votes aside, how do you think the turf riders and, DRF and other groups that get to vote on the Eclipse Awards, how do you think they would land with horse of the year at this point?
Honestly, if we were voting right now, I feel like it would be a close race, but I do have a feeling maybe Mindframe would get the overall vote from the people who do vote on the Eclipse Awards, just because, I think you and Frank kind of mentioned it last week, and Steve maybe a little as well. A lot of turf riders don't want to take a 3-year-old for that kind of award when they haven't faced open company at older competition. Now, when it comes to something like our mid-season awards that we did last week, I mean, the first half of the racing season every year is dominated by Triple Crown coverage, the Kentucky Derby prep season, and then the Derby, the Preakness, and the Belmont. So it's understandable that for a mid-season horse of the year, when you have a horse like Sovereignty who dominated 2/3 of the race, of the races in the Triple Crown, that he would get the public vote. He would get my vote. And then when you look at journalism being second there, I mean, winner of the Preakness, solid second the other two, winner of the Santa Anita Derby and the San Felipe very impressively. So it makes sense why the public's leaning towards the 3-year-olds. But I do feel like a lot of our peers and our colleagues do kind of look at that as they haven't faced the older horses yet, so we can't vote for them for an overall award. I obviously differ with that since I picked them, but that's how I feel most people would vote.
We'll get back into this in just a second. Want to set the show up, though. You mentioned journalism getting the second number of votes in our horse of the year to this point. And by the way, if someone voted for journalism, just like, hey, he ran in all 3 and he ran well in all 3, and that's what I value, I wouldn't argue with them for a second. I would not argue with them for a second. He's got 2 grade 1s. He's placed in 2 grade 1s this year. I'm not arguing with any of it, for sure. We'll talk with his owner, Aron Wellman, Eclipse Thoroughbred Partners. As part of this show, we'll talk to Matt Dinerman, who will call the Haskell this weekend, where we will see the return of journalism to the track for the first time since the aforementioned Triple Crown. We'll also talk with Patrick Brown. He's with the Racing and Gaming Conference at Saratoga coming up in just a couple of weeks. Frank will sit in on that one. We know Frank's got a ton of wagering questions for him, and we will do our best to move through that. But as we talk about these awards, Sean, and we try to figure it out, I think the best example of this is, I think one of the reasons Torpedo Anna, for example, was it's such an interesting thing about the Eclipse Awards that there's a 3-year-old division for both male and female. So it allows a horse like Torpedo Anna to fall into that group, but then also win Horse of the Year, right? But I don't think she wins Horse of the Year if she doesn't try the Travers, and certainly doesn't win the distaff, right? When she beats those older horses. I don't know that she wins Horse of the Year last year ahead of some other competitors, but man, I think going in the Travers and showing, oh goodness, she's just every bit, a nose worse than Fierceness or something over 1.25 miles, and it certainly goes to the distaff, is easily the best in that race. Obviously hurt by the lack of an Adair Manor, or the lack of an Idiomatic in that field, but certainly I'm not sure either of those horses get anywhere near her on that day. She looks so good. And so I do think, though, that part of her resume really did help at the end of by the time we got to the Eclipse Awards.
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think once she ran that close second in the Travers, I think that's what really put her on the Horse of the Year map. The fact that she could hold her own against the boys. And then really at that point, it was she just needs to win the distaff against older and have Fierceness lose the Classic, and the award's hers. And that's exactly what happened. And that's what ended up being the way that people voted. But I do think there is somewhat of... You have to, I think, at least from my voting perspective, when you have a horse like her that kind of transcends the sport a little bit, you do have to give her the nod if the accomplishments are maybe even slightly less, just because, and not saying that they were slightly less, but if you had a scenario where you felt like I go back to 2018 with Justify and Accelerate, where Accelerate had the big long year, but Justify transcended the sport and he won the Triple Crown. He did something that has only been done 13 times in history, and he got the nod for Horse of the Year by a lot of people and ended up winning it. And so sometimes there's things like that where we have to kind of look at a public's perspective, who obviously the accomplishments are important, but you also got to look at who really kind of helped to benefit the sport this year, who helped bring attention to the sport. And Justify did that. Torpedo Anna did that. And that's why you see them end up winning the award.
No, that's right. And frankly, I know you were there as well, so this is a story you could tell as well. But when they had her parade in the fall at Churchill, and it wasn't a racing day, she had been out at the farm, but they brought her to Churchill. And every time they walked around that paddock and they got to the chute, and it was time to go through the tunnel and get out to the track and do all that stuff, she's like, oh, okay, let's go. Yeah, I'm ready. Let's go. Yeah, go. We're going out that way, right? And she would stop, Sean. They'd have 2 people walk her because she was so ready to go out to the track and do that.
She could have ran that day.
I completely agree with you. And frankly,
was that Clark day? She could have probably went and beat them in the Clark that day.
For sure. But that's the point too, is why she stands out as Horse of the Year. What they did with her last summer at Saratoga as well, where she was available for visits and that kind of stuff. Then she, walks around the paddock at Churchill Downs. There were thousands of people at the paddock at Churchill on Clark Day just to see her. Not even where we were standing, where there were plenty of people, inside that middle part of the paddock at Churchill Downs, but just in those stands that they have on the outside. By the way, if you haven't been to the new paddock at Churchill Downs, it's a lot like the Gulfstream Park paddock, believe it or not, as far as some of the seating on the outside and different things. That way. Less what?
Less stores around though.
less slot machines. Yeah, there you are. But yes, no, it's a similar kind of feel to those stands, on the outside.
I'd agree with that. Yeah.
And by the way, I like it. I wish tracks would take the good stuff from other tracks and put it in their tracks more often, because I think that's a nice addition for Churchill for sure. But you brought up Accelerate in 2018, and the Haskell starts, I think, the second half of the 3-year-old season, as far as I'm concerned. And it's no putting down of an Indiana Derby or an Iowa Derby, an Ohio Derby, what have you. I really think of the Haskell because it is a grade 1. It's literally always been a grade 1. There are very few races in the graded stakes era that have always kept their grade 1. The Haskell's one of them, Matt. Good Lord, Matt Dinerman.
I know you're jumping ahead of the show.
I am jumping ahead. Louie? But he, Accelerate that year. I do wonder if there isn't the next horse, ready for this year, or if we've already met them, right? Could it be, let's say Gosger runs really well, wins, whatever. I feel like we already met him in the Preakness, man, right?
Yeah,
like we already
we know who he is. We know what he's made of. We know he can contend on this stage. So I would be very, every year it seems like we have maybe that 1 or 2 3-year-old that at least has a shot to jump up, and maybe it doesn't pan out like last year where, there were a couple that maybe took a shot at the Travers, but then it still ended up being Fierceness, Torpedo Anna, and Sierra Leone dominating that race. Maybe they're still out there, but I do feel like this is kind of a year where the best 3-year-olds from the first half of the year are going to be the best 3-year-olds in the second half of the year. And I just feel like there's such a high level of talent in the 3-year-old division this year to where it's going to be really hard for one of these new shooters to jump up in the Haskell, in the Travers, in maybe the Pennsylvania Derby, get somebody that can kind of pop up as Sovereignty and Journalism wait for the Breeders' Cup. But it's going to be really tough for kind of a new face to show up this year, I think, unless there's a Arrogate hiding out there somewhere. We'll see.
Well, Arrogate hiding. The one that the two that I think of from the spring that haven't won one of these high level races that I think could turn into that next horse. Gosgar, we already mentioned. It's Magnitude, right? Coming out of that Iowa Derby. Yeah. We'll see where he points next. My sense is we won't see him at Saratoga, so he might be a Pennsylvania Derby kind of horse by the time.
That'd be a good spot for him. Well, I think I said that last week. That'd be the route I'd take.
Yeah, but if he goes that route and then we see him at the Breeders' Cup, all bets are off at that point, man. I mean, because he's fast, he's on the front, he doesn't need to. Tactically, he's not a difficult horse to pilot, right? And I don't want to put down anyone that's ever ridden the horse and put up the speed figures and different things that they have with him, but that does stand out. Those two to me, Sean, do seem to be the two that if there are going to be horses that jump up, pick off one of these grade ones, it might be one of those two.
Yeah, and I think those two are really the two where it feels like they're still progressing. The Preakness was Gosgar's his fourth race, I think. And you saw him run really well, and maybe him getting tired there at the end was just a little bit of immaturity of him being on the lead for so long by himself until Journalism got up to him. Magnitude obviously had that time off, and he came back in a big way. So it feels like those are two horses where maybe we still haven't seen their peak yet. So they could get to that point where they're contending with Sovereignty and Journalism the second half of the year. But at the same time, who knows? Maybe Sovereignty and Journalism even get better, and everyone else has no hope.
We'll talk with Matt Dinerman, track announcer, later in the show there at Monmouth Park. This is a day you and I both love, Haskell Day. We'll certainly get into it with Matt. And obviously Aaron's going to be making the trip, Aron Wellman, the owner of Journalism here. But the Molly Pitcher, the Monmouth Cup, that Haskell, my favorite race on the card is always the United Nations. I love that race so much. I'm a sucker for a longer turf race. I'm a sucker for a horse like Get Smokin' last year, who's like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get the lead. Y'all can come catch me. I love horses like that. And of course, we've seen Deterministic do that already this year. And so maybe we've run out of those kinds of runs, Sean, but is there outside of the Haskell a favorite race on the card for you?
No, the Haskell takes it for me. Yeah, that was for those that don't know, the Haskell's the first live horse race I ever attended back in 2014. This will be my 11th one this year, so it holds a very special place in my heart. I guess technically my first stakes race I ever saw live was the Molly Pitcher because it was early on the card. But the Haskell for me is always the big draw each year. I can't wait for that race. This is always the one after the Triple Crown races. Is always my target every year. I would say this is probably my second favorite race day of the year after Kentucky Derby Day for sure.
Okay. Wow. All right. More than say a Breeders' Cup Saturday or something like that?
Yeah. I love Haskell Day. There's nothing like being at Monmouth for the Haskell. I love Monmouth Park. I love the Haskell. Nothing better than that. Except for the Kentucky Derby.
It's so hard to describe to people how much we love going to that race. But all right. And at this point, he is friend of the show, Aron Wellman, who's from Eclipse Thoroughbred Partners, joins us here on BloodHorse Monday alongside Sean Collins, Louie Rabaut, hanging out with you. We are both headed to the Haskell. We found out there's a third guy headed to the Haskell. His name is Journalism. Will be part of that grade 1 field on a Saturday. Aron, welcome back in. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me back, guys.
Yeah, no problem at all. The decision-making process with a horse like Journalism and everything else, it feels like, at least from the outside, from our vantage point at least, you guys have a stunningly cohesive process with this horse as far as trainer Michael McCarthy, ownership, etc. After the Derby, after the Preakness, we watched that process play out over and over. Similar here for the Haskell? Is it a similar kind of process?
Absolutely. First and foremost, it's the horse that does the talking, and we just got to do our best to listen to him. Michael McCarthy obviously is at the top of the totem pole, in that respect. And then we've got just a wonderful ownership group with Eclipse. Michael and I have a great rapport. Of course, Bridlewood Farm, Don Alberto, Bob LaPenta, and ever since coming in, Coolmore has been just remarkably supportive of the entire venture. So we've got good communication throughout the ranks with journalism, doing his best to make our lives easy. And of course, relying on Michael McCarthy to steer the ship. So yeah, it's been a blast. And just to have a horse like him that really does make our life so easy when it comes to these decisions is a true blessing.
Well, what have the last month and a half or so been like for him since the Belmont Stakes? You know, he ran in all 3 jewels of the Triple Crown. That's a taxing effort, but he must be doing pretty well if he's going to be coming back in the Haskell, isn't he?
He's done really well. We gave him an easy 10 days, 2 weeks when he got back to California to Santa Anita after the Belmont Stakes. He obviously had 6 some odd weeks on the road from Kentucky to Baltimore, then to New York, and then traveling back to California. So, you know, that just in and of itself takes its toll on a horse, but he's such a hardy individual. I can't speak enough to his physical and psychological constitution that's allowed him to handle all this so well and continue to perform at such a high level. So we gave him those easy couple weeks, and then he was pretty much indicating it was time to get back to work. And Michael gradually started to build him back up, and we breezed him 3 weekends ago. He was very energetic in that breeze, came out of it exceptionally well. We started to tighten the screws the week prior to this one, and he gave us another good indication that he was ready for more. And then we did put him to a bit of a test this past Saturday with a team drill, going 5/8 out of stiff 3/4. And he just tells us he's a racehorse, you know? So if there's a race out there that makes sense, we're going to go for it. And the Haskell added up every which way.
Aron Wellman with us from Eclipse Thoroughbred Partners. We ran a poll as part of an episode we did last week for Horse of the Year midway through the year, Aron. And your boy Journalism finished ahead of Mindframe. That's how much people around the country are enjoying watching him run, how much they're fans of him. Do you feel that too, just in general with Journalism? I got to say, you're talking about these workouts. Aron, every bleeping time I see this horse work out, he's better. Like, he just gets better every time. It's a stunning thing, but also just that sort of, I think, appreciation from horse racing fans, the first, second runnings in those 3 Triple Crown races. Are you feeling that as well?
Absolutely. And that's just been another remarkable part of this whole experience for us at Eclipse and our partners and everybody aligned with him. He is sort of taken on this role of the people's horse, and it really makes you realize that when you have the individual to be able to do it with, and they're very few and far between. They are hard to come by, the journalism of the world that have the, you know, just that hickory way about them that you can keep traveling with them and showing up in Grade 1 races time and again, and that they show up and perform. So throughout his Santa Anita Derby to Kentucky Derby process, he really started to gain a lot of traction, not just within the industry media, but he sort of transcended the sport. I think a lot of that had to do with his name, in conjunction with the fact that he had proven himself to be an elite horse in its own right. And then, of course, the Preakness performance against all odds, defying logic, really allowed him to gain so much more respect throughout the industry and throughout all sports media, which was just incredible to be a part of. But I think that fans and gamblers and breeders and owners and all stakeholders in this game really appreciate this day and age when one of those rare individuals comes by that's capable of dancing every dance. And hopefully there's an appreciation not just for the horse himself, which he deserves, but also for the connections who are willing to allow him to do what he's born and built to do, which is run at a very high level on a consistent basis. So, we're not playing scared. He's telling us, and we've got the utmost confidence in our horse, in our jockey, and of course our trainer, Michael McCarthy, who's just done an impeccable job developing him from day one.
Now, you talked about, not really dodging any spots. He's been dancing all the big dances. This will be, I believe, his 5th grade 1 in a row now here in the Haskell. There's really, this second half of the year, there's the 3 grade 1s left for the 3-year-olds at these distances, the Haskell, the Travers, and then the Pennsylvania Derby. I know there was some talk in the media. I don't know how much you guys were actually considering it, that he might end up in the Jim Dandy instead. Haskell grade 1 versus Jim Dandy grade 2, the Haskell, the Breeders' Cup winning you're in as well. Did that play any role into swaying you one way or the other? Or was it always, the Haskell is the prestigious race, we want to run in that one?
Yeah, with all respect to the Jim Dandy, it's an important race and it's at Saratoga and it's got a lot of history behind it. We would love to have any number of horses that we could consider for that race. But when the comparison is Jim Dandy at Saratoga in a grade 2 for $500,000, and the Haskell, which is an incredibly important, prestigious, historic race in its own right, with grade 1 status and $1 million purse, it's not necessarily all about the money or the prestige, but in this case, all the factors tilted in favor of the Haskell. The grade 1 status, the $1 million purse. We actually like the timing of the Haskell as well, because it's 6 weeks from the Belmont to the Haskell. And then that gives us a little bit more flexibility. Not that we're trying to look too far beyond just the Haskell, because we got to take care of business on Saturday. We have a lot of respect for the horses that are going to be showing up and doing their best to take down journalism. But it does allow for a little bit more flexibility in spacing of his races after the Haskell as well. The travel was simpler to get to Monmouth than it was to Saratoga. So all these variables, of course, we're leaving no stone unturned. Every T is being crossed, every I dotted. This is an important horse that's a huge asset to our partners and will ultimately stand at Coolmore. So we're trying to just be very responsible as it relates to the management of his career and also the asset that he is in the future, and trying to make him worth as much as we possibly can. But there really wasn't a whole lot of debate between the Jim Dandy and the Haskell, to be honest with you. And again, that's not trying to be slighting or disrespectful to Jim Dandy. It was just a relatively black and white decision for us as a team to make.
Hey, we're in an era where, Justify wins the Triple Crown. We never see him again, and then we get, Country House never races again after he wins the Derby, just example after example of this kind of stuff. Any part of your mind think, okay, my horse just ran, our horse just ran in 3 races in 5 weeks against the best competition in his age group, going long distances. Any part of you thinking, yeah, we're not going to do the Haskell, he's not going to be ready? Did that creep in for you after the Belmont at all?
With this horse, he gives us so much confidence that no, honestly, we weren't like calling our shot right after the Belmont. We're going to the Haskell and mapping out a plan for the second half of the year. We know what all the options are. They're out there on the table. We just needed to give him a minute to tell us whether he was ready to get on a plane again and go tackle fresh horses, and good ones at that, in another grade 1 race across the country from his home base. So we really never make a plan. We want to try to assess him on a day-to-day basis and plan from that or those indicators day by day. But we don't rule anything out. And as you saw, step by step from the Derby to the Preakness, we waited the whole week to make our decision whether he was in condition to be able to be entered in the Preakness. And then we waited a little bit longer to make the decision between the Preakness and the Belmont, but logistically put him in position to get to Saratoga so that if he indicated he was ready for the Belmont, we did it. So it's really a step-by-step process, but this is a horse that we have just so much confidence in that we don't dismiss anything that he's capable of doing. We don't want to jump to conclusions. We want to do right by the horse and manage him race by race. And that's being good stewards of the animal himself and hopefully the sport too. And like you said earlier, I think that the stakeholders and the fans are appreciating that.
When you look back at the Triple Crown with the second in the Derby, the win in the Preakness, and the second in the Belmont, I know a lot of people maybe in your shoes would feel maybe a little disappointed, getting close to winning those two races, but not quite. But it seems like you guys have really, he obviously didn't lose anything in those races. He ran fantastic races, and it seems like you guys are still really proud of him. Just what are your thoughts now, a couple of weeks removed, on just the whole Triple Crown season?
Do you still believe he got through in the Preakness? Like, tell us the truth.
Yeah, that's still a tough one to wrap your head around. But yeah, and this is potentially going to come off the wrong way. It's hard to believe that he only won one of the legs of the Triple Crown. That's how good of a horse we think Journalism is. So for Sovereignty to handle him twice the way he did, even though you could argue that in the Belmont he was a fresher horse and was waiting for Journalism after a tough race in the Preakness, you got to give credit to Sovereignty himself. Bill Mott had him trained up to the minute. I mean, impeccable horsemanship on his part, great rides by Junior Alvarado. But it really puts into perspective, like, we know how good Journalism is. Mike McCarthy and myself and our team, we've been around and been fortunate to be around a lot of good horses, and we know how good Journalism is. There's no telling how good Sovereignty might be because of the way the matchup has landed so far, and it's a 2-0 scoreboard. And we acknowledge that. We certainly hope that there will come a time later on this season or perhaps next year, if that's possible, for these two to square off again or more. But yeah, it's hard to believe going into the Triple Crown that we only walked away with one of them. Not to say that we're not incredibly thrilled that we did and not incredibly proud that he ran second in the other two legs. But man, what a horse Sovereignty must be. And hopefully, with a little bit more experience and seasoning and time and maybe some adjustments and tactics, we can turn the tables and start to narrow the gap between the two of them. But it's an incredible, I don't even want to call it a rivalry, but it's just awesome to have two horses of this caliber competing, going toe to toe. I think it's great for the industry. It's great to be part of, and we'll see what the future holds.
Did we just crack the door open a little bit on a 4-year-old campaign?
Like I said, we don't rule anything out, and we just take it. Now, look, our goal, our objective was the Triple Crown with Journalism the first half of the season. He performed admirably at a huge level. And if not for Sovereignty, he'd be a Triple Crown winner. And you could say the opposite for Sovereignty. Had he run in the Preakness, maybe he would have been a Triple Crown winner. So I think you've got two Triple Crown worthy individuals, which is very rare to see in this game. As for us, now we really can take the second half of this season on a race-by-race basis with the hope that Journalism cooperates and allows us to work backwards from the Breeders' Cup Classic. Beyond that, we'll have to huddle up with the very, very savvy people at Coolmore and make a determination for Journalism and the partnership as to what's in the horses and the partnership's best interest. But right now, our sole focus is the Haskell. It's the only thing that matters to us and this horse right now. And hopefully he goes out there and makes us proud on Saturday.
Journalism's owner, his name is Aron Wellman. He's from Eclipse Thoroughbred Partners. I wanted to ask, you mentioned Junior Alvarado, and you're right about those two rides in the Derby and the Belmont. You're not going to do much better than that for sure. Umberto's been aboard for all three of the Triple Crown races, certainly before that. Look, there are lots of tweaks that can be made in horse racing. Any thought to not having Umberto ride moving forward? Or was there a discussion at all after the Triple Crown, or is he the guy?
Look, we operate on the notion that you win a grade 1 race on our horse, he's your horse. And we've got great partners that are loyal and have the utmost confidence in Umberto. He's a world-class rider. He's ridden all over the globe and competed and succeeded at the highest level. He's our guy. And they have, when I say they, Umberto and journalism have a remarkable rapport with one another. You saw what journalism did for him in the Preakness and the run that Umberto got out of him after the brouhaha that ensued at the 8th pole. You know, journalism runs for him, and he's going to continue to run for him. You know, there have been discussions internally with Umberto and Michael McCarthy about tactics and the tactics that we'd like to employ and what we think journalism is at his best doing. Yes, those conversations have ensued. But as for jockey, look, loyalty is hard to come by in this game, but I'd like to think that Eclipse is an operation that is respected for our loyalty to all our horsemen and women, whether they be trainers, jockeys, or otherwise, as well as our partners, Bridlewood Farm, Don Alberto, Bob LaPenta, and Coolmore.
Now, journalism's not the only very talented horse in your stable. I know we're high on, and our colleague Frank Angst is especially high on Fondly, coming off of her win out in Delaware. What would be next for her? Where's she headed next?
Yeah, we're super excited about Fondly. As you could tell, I mean, we were pretty ambitious with her running her in the Kentucky Oaks off just 2 lifetime starts after her win in the Virginia Oaks. Super talented filly, a lot of class. Give a lot of credit to my right-hand man in the bloodstock world at Eclipse, the VP of bloodstock, Sean Tugel. He bird dogged this filly for 50 grand at Physic Tipped in October. You know, and I gave him the green light to go on with it, and to see where she is now is a remarkable achievement for Sean, and one that needs to be acknowledged. This filly romped in the Delaware Oaks, delivered as we thought. Didn't think she got the best of it in the Kentucky Oaks on a really, really tricky surface that day. We got a deluge right before the Oaks, and she wanted no part of it. Thrilled to see her come back and rebound in the Delaware Oaks the way she did and put forth that type of effort. We're resisting the temptation to go back into the deep end of the pool and run her in the CCA Oaks, even though it was tempting. We're going to stay in a little bit more of a realistic zone and run her the week after the Haskell in the Monmouth Oaks at Monmouth Park. So hopefully we had a good weekend last weekend with a filly called Roja winning the Blue Sparkler at Monmouth. We've got a huge lineup there, including journalism, Candied, Corruption, and big races there on Haskell Day. And then we hope to put an exclamation point on it in the Monmouth Oaks with Fondly the following week. And if she delivers as we hope she will, then we could consider races like possibly the Alabama or the Cotillion. But we think she's a filly with a grade 1 with her name on it.
Aron Wellman with us. You're headed to New Jersey. When was your last trip to Monmouth Park?
Man, it's been a long time. I actually can't remember when the last time was, but I know that we did win a race the last time I was there. So I'm hoping to keep my limited streak alive with in-person attendance at Monmouth. But yeah, we hope to have a great crew out there by the Jersey Shore on Saturday. And, you know, it's a privilege to be represented by the lineup that we are, headlined by journalism.
There you
Well,
go.
on top of that going for you, when you were on this show in March, it was right the week of journalism winning the San Felipe right before that. So you got that going for you as well. Being on the show usually works out for you too.
Well,
good. Let's keep that mojo flowing.
We'll now have him on before all of his horses starts.
Do we admit that we had Junior on before the Belmont? Do we admit that now? Was that a thing that we see? It's a powerful show. I don't know what to tell you.
You guys are good handicappers.
There it is. It must be.
There we go.
We will see him in Eatontown this weekend. Aron, thanks so much for jumping on BloodHorse Monday again.
Appreciate it as always, fellas.
There you go. Aron Wellman, Eclipse Thoroughbred Partners. Appreciate those folks. Jumping on with us here. And look, Sean, there's grade 1s and then there's journalism showing up grade 1s, right? And so this has been, the 3-year-old season is like this, where, especially when you have groups like the McCarthy Barn and like Eclipse and all the folks that he mentioned in the partnership, that if you're doing right by the horse, these decisions do have to take time, right? And so we're kind of, we with the Foster, for example, we kind of knew who 6-7 of those horses were going to be ahead of time. With 3-year-olds coming out of a Triple Crown campaign like this, it's a different question. I'll be honest, I'm a little surprised he's ready to go already, but it's like Aaron just talked about, he's just different.
Yeah.
He's just different. Every time I see a workout with journalism, he's doing something a little better than the last time I saw him. He's just so, I use the word hickory, which I totally appreciate, by the way. That's a great term on the show, but he's just built to run and run and run, not to make a built joke, but he really is. And I wonder if I don't allow myself to kind of be stained by previous examples of horses just not ready to run in the Haskell or something like that. And I'm, not thinking enough about the fact that we still do have these great 3-year-olds around. We have a bunch of them this year, frankly. And, I think this could be a great Haskell. I'm very excited.
I'm very excited too. And just to put in perspective, you think back American Pharaoh, when he came back in the Haskell, he had an extra 2 weeks compared to journalism after the Belmont. That was before they moved the race, and he ended up running the Haskell. I believe it was August 2nd. Journalism's coming back to run it on July 19th. So he's coming back fairly quick. And that just is a real testament to the kind of horse that he is. I remember seeing him going back out onto the track. What was it? The Wednesday after the Kentucky Derby? He looked phenomenal, like he hadn't run. And, obviously you saw what he did when he came back in the Preakness. And then you look at him, Aaron referenced it there. We just don't know how good Sovereignty is, because journalism ran top-notch races in all 3 Triple Crown races. He's one of those horses that it's weird to put him in this category because he did win one of the Triple Crown races, but I feel like he's one of the horses where we're going to look at down the line as a sham or an Alidar of the great horse just born in the wrong year. Because if he was born a year later, he's next year's Triple Crown winner. If he was born last year, he was last year's Triple Crown winner. And so it's an interesting scenario that he's in, but it's a real testament to Michael McCarthy, to Eclipse, and all the owners to give him the opportunity to kind of really let him develop into the star that he is. And we're seeing him bounce out of these races very well and keep putting up big performances. I don't expect him to take a step back at all this weekend. I'm expecting top-notch journalism, if not the best journalism we've seen yet this weekend.
If the videos of the workouts are any indication, then we're getting the best version of him. It's incredible to say. I mean, it really is. And awesome. Good. Give me all of it. Just see it straight in my veins for sure. I didn't ask him because I didn't know the best way to formulate the question, but do you think, and you brought it up, winning in for the Breeders' Cup, if he does win, do you think his schedule slows down, or is this just the kind of horse you got to run?
Well, it sounds like he's the kind of horse you got to run. It sounds like they tried to sit on him a little bit after the Belmont and he wasn't having it. So now the question is, do you send him back to California? Maybe go against Older in the Pacific Classic. Do you bring him back?
That is the one I keep coming back to in my mind, is the Pacific Classic, because I think he'll be the favorite of the Pacific Classic. If he goes.
Well, I think we'll get a real telling sign based off of what happens right after the Haskell, because you heard Aaron mention there. It was a brief mention, but he did mention when I had asked that question that it was easier to get him to Monmouth than it is to Saratoga. So if he sticks around on the East Coast, I think that's going to be a huge telling sign. If he flies back to the West Coast, I mean, he could still fly back for the Travers, but that would be that seems like something that they would consider. You saw him after the Preakness go straight up to Saratoga after that, even though they hadn't decided on the Belmont yet. I think we'll get an idea of what the rest of his year will look like very quickly.
Yeah, that's a good point by you. All right. Well, the man who will call the races this weekend is Matt Dinerman. And I got to say, Sean, just on a personal note with Matt, Matt was one of my earliest people that actually answered the phone when I was doing a podcast ever. He was calling races at Golden Gate Fields, and we were willing to have him on for $50,000 black types because you know what? That's what he was calling. And now he's calling grade ones in Arkansas and in New Jersey. He'll be on the call of the grade one Haskell, the $1 million Haskell this weekend as well. Matt Dinerman joins BloodHorse Monday now. All right, he's not in Arkansas anymore. He's calling the races this summer, as he did last year at Monmouth Park. His name is Matt Dinerman. He'll be on the call for the Haskell, and of course, the greatest race in the history of the United States, the United Nations, earlier in the day on the Haskell card. Matt, good afternoon. Thanks for joining us on BloodHorse Monday.
Great to be on with you guys. How are you?
We're doing great. We are headed your way in a very short order. I'm going to eat a lot of pizza. Is that okay? Is that a thing that we should do in East Jersey? Yeah.
I'd be disappointed if you didn't. I mean, what are you coming to Jersey for if you're not going to have some pizza? Come on. I love it.
Get a pie. That's exactly right. Well, Matt, second year at Monmouth Park. What do you find different about your, just showing up this year and different things? Is it just more comfortable, more familiar? What do you find this year, your second go around?
Definitely. I think it's more comfortable. You know the people, you know the surroundings. You always are learning about new things around the area because there's just so many things to do. But you get used to your environment here, and you get used to sort of coming into a place that you know. And as human beings, we're all about creatures of habit. So it's nice when you're in a place that you're comfortable in. And even calling a second Haskell, you know, going into the race, I think it's going to be a little bit more comforting knowing, okay, you've done it one time already here.
Well, take us back to that one time where you did it. You had the top two from the Belmont coming in, Dornoch and Mindframe. They end up running 1-2 in the Haskell as well. Just what were your nerves going into a big race like that? And how do you enjoy the experience?
It's funny because when I was at Emerald Downs calling the Long Acres Mile or the San Francisco Mile at Golden Gate, and there were nerves there, I figured that it would be a whole new level when you call a race like the Haskell or the Arkansas Derby or the Apple Blossom at Oaklawn. But then when you do it and you are a part of it, you realize the nerves are the same. It has nothing to do with grade 1 status or purses or who's in the race. It's about the prestige of the race, and the nerves, in my opinion, at least for me, I can only speak for myself, but people may say, why are you nervous? You're going to do a great job. And it's like, I'm not nervous about screwing up. We all make mistakes. Things happen. The nerves are just, you want to do a good job, and the build up leading up to it. I think a lot of us announcers, I probably can't speak for a lot of us in this sense. I think we try to stay clear of all the build up because we just want to focus on calling the race and doing a good job and keep our minds clear there. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely some nerves and some anxiety and some, jitters leading up to the race, for lack of a better term, but it's always a great feeling when you call a good race and you go in feeling that you will. The experience was great last year. Haskell Day was a phenomenal day. The weather was perfect, as you guys can attest to. 39,000 people. It was packed. It was loud. It was festive. People were celebrating, having a great time. So that gets me even more excited for this year, knowing what the Haskell's all about. Haskell Day, not just the Haskell itself, but a number of good races. Louie, you mentioned the UN. That race will come up strong again, it sounds like, this year. Very strong, in fact. So just a really, really good time. The thing about the Haskell, too, is it's really in a win-win position as a race, because if you get a couple really big names, maybe the field won't be as big. You might see a few horses bow out later on in the process, but you're still going to get good horses. If you don't get a superstar, you're going to get maybe a few more entries, but really solid horses. So I feel like the Haskell, which is 5 weeks from the Travers, it's in a great spot in terms of its positioning. And it's just a win-win race because you always get a really solid field for it based on those numbers. It's $1 million race, grade 1. You're going to get good horses in it.
Matt Dinerman with us. He'll be calling the races at Monmouth Park on Saturday as part of the Haskell Day there, 2025 rendition. I'll be sitting on the sofa, not during that race, but on different ones.
Of course. I want you to come up and say hello.
I will. Do we have a guest book this year?
No guest book. I did not get to doing that. I should have done it. Maybe we're gonna get one for Saturday. For those who don't know, we were all talking about getting a guest book so everybody who came in can sign it. May have to get one by Saturday so you guys can be at the top of the list. And on Sunday, I laid on the couch just for Louie to just break it in because there haven't been people sitting on it for a while. Papa B's was the last one. So
let's go. I like that. Okay, good. All right, I like that.
Twitter, bro. Yeah. So he was the last one. So we got to break it in a little bit after a few weeks without being used.
All right. We'll be up there. We'll say hi to the rubber ducks and all the good things. The transition from Arkansas to Monmouth, what's the biggest change in calling races between the two places? And leaving out the fact that there's turf racing in
Tony, that was the easy answer. Louie. You already knew what I was going to say. Yeah, well, that's disqualified. It's funny because the sight lines are a little bit different here at Monmouth. Couple more trees in the way on the far turn, believe it or not, right at the 5/16. There's that tree there, and that's when moves are being made and they go right behind the tree. So that's something that's a little bit of a challenge. I'm actually ahead of the wire both racetracks. I'm a little more closer to the 16th pole here, not on the 16th pole, that's a little too far down, but a little more farther down the stretch than Oaklawn. So at least you get used to those sight lines and you start adapting to it. I would say, here, I think that moves are being made earlier than Arkansas because I think turning for home, you really got to be fairly around to win here on this track. So with that in mind, I think that you see a change in style, and you want to try to note those things as opposed to Oaklawn where moves are made. But I think down the lane, it's a little more fair than versus here. It can be a very fair racetrack, but I think you still want to be in a good position on a track like this, turning from, if there's a horse that's 5-6 off the pace, usually you see the riders that ride here, they move to make sure that they get in a good position by the quarter pole.
Well, we know journalism is going to be coming down for the Haskell this year. I'm sure you're very excited to see him and to call him in this race. But you're there at Monmouth. What are you hearing about his competition? Do you think there's anybody who could potentially pull an upset? What are your views on the race? Obviously, the field draws tomorrow, but what can you tell us at this point?
So we've got 8 probables that are very much figured to enter, which is a good thing. I mean, we typically get 7 to 8 horses a year in the Haskell, so nothing new this year. We may have a 9th entrant. He'd be a long shot, but he's a possibility. We could have 9. So 8 to 9 horses. Bracket Buster, he won the Naira Bets Pegasus here very impressively on the wet going. He'll be back for trainer Vicky Oliver and BBN Racing. They are New Jersey folks, BBN Racing, their partnership, so they're very excited to have a Haskell starter. Gosker was second best in the Preakness to Journalism. He'll be here with jockey Louie Saez. Burnham Square, grade 1 winner at Keeneland. He will be back coming off a runner-up finish in the Matt win. He is going to be here for trainer Ian Wilkes. Moplex, they were thinking about running him in either the Haskell or the Jim Dandy. He's going to side with the Jim Dandy, so he is going to stay home. Kentucky Outlaw won the Long Branch. He is going to be coming here. Good. After a 3rd place finish behind Admiral Dennis is the favorite in the Delaware Derby. He will be entering in the Haskell. And on top of that, you got a couple of other locals like Wild and Crazy Night, National Law, 2nd and 4th in the Pegasus. They're going to be taking a stab at Haskell Glory this year. And I'm just pulling up right now any other probables I forgot to mention. Well, how did I forget this guy? Goal Oriented, who ran 4th in the Preakness. Bob Baffert looking for a record 10th Haskell win. He is going to ship this horse across country for the Haskell. So those are your 8 probables as of Monday afternoon. John Velasquez will be aboard Bracket Buster. Brian Hernandez Jr. is riding Burnham Square. We're going to have Goal Oriented with Flavian Pratt. Gosker, make him Luis Saez. Journalism, Umberto Rispoli. National Law, Fernando Hara. Wild and Crazy Night, Isaac Castillo. And finally, Kentucky Outlaw, possibly Irad Ortiz or Javier Castellano.
Are you excited yet, Louie?
Oh, my God.
Yeah, well, I didn't know if you were upset with all I was saying, or if you're just exciting you. Okay, good.
No, once in a while as an adult, which I try to be from time to time, you have to bite your tongue when you're this excited. I would have interrupted you on all of those.
Okay, good.
Spectacular. Matt, this is also winning in for the Breeders' Cup, which is, an added layer to this. We get out of the Triple Crown season, and then these races have implications on the other side. I have to imagine for a horse like Journalism, this is especially interesting to Southern California-based connections, that kind of thing, the Bafferts of the world as well. Do you think there's a chance that you'll call a Haskell that has a Breeders' Cup winner in it as well?
Possibly. I think if Journalism, runs a good race, you never know. I mean, he hasn't beat Sovereignty yet. I think Sovereignty's at the head of his division right now, even as a 3-year-old. So he's the one to beat, obviously, in that 3-year-old division. And who knows, maybe even down the line against older. But I think there's a good possibility with Journalism. He's going to be a major player in a race like the Breeders' Cup Classic for sure. Very good horse. And he's training forwardly, it appears, off that run in the Belmont. So I'm excited. I think this horse is not the type of horse that's just going to sort of taper off. I think that he's the type of horse that's not just going to hit a ceiling, is what I should have said. He's going to keep going, and I think he can even improve as he gets older here. He's just a really good horse, and he's growing. He's developing. He's getting better.
How excited were you when you saw him on the entries list?
Definitely exciting. I mean, when you get a horse like this and you look at the past winners of this race, it's just year after year you get really good horses. So we were sort of waiting to see, are we going to get a standout type of horse like that? And for Journalism to come into the race from a storyline perspective, from just the quality of the race, it goes from being a really solid race to at the top here. It's at the top now with a horse like Journalism in there for this year's edition.
When you look at a horse like Journalism or last year with Dornoch, does it put any added pressure on you in the back of your mind, knowing if this horse wins, I'm going to have to hear my race call in every breeding commercial that he's in going forward?
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's funny you say that. I think from the outside, definitely, like you you would think that as an announcer, you just want to do a good job because you might hear yourself in the commercials. But I personally just don't try to think about it too much. It's like, I'm just, I always say, whether it's a $5,000 claiming race going a mile and an eighth or a grade one, they're all going in the same direction. One field's just going to be a lot slower than the other, and there's going to be a few more eyes on the Haskell than maybe the $5,000 claimer. So the preparation remains the same. I can't sit here and say that, like, you don't sit here and feel the same calling a $5,000 claimer as calling it grade one. Obviously, it feels different. But you try to just do the best job you can. And I think it actually helps when you have a horse like that, because it gets the juices flowing. The adrenaline's there. You're getting excited. You're training as an announcer to call horses like this. You hope one day you can. So it's just sort of a full circle moment as well when you get to.
Outside of the beach and pizza, we're talking with Matt Dinerman at 3 Colts Handicap on the socials. What should people expect when they go to Monmouth Park for the first time?
You come to Monmouth, it's a family-friendly atmosphere. Young kids, older folks that have been coming to the track for decades, barbecuing. There's a giant picnic area. People think of Saratoga and the picnic tables.
They should.
Sometimes Monmouth's picnic area gets overshadowed because of that a little bit. You come here, it is just a sea of people at the picnic tables. There is bring your own beer and drinks, and people show up having a good time. Families, there's a playground down the stretch. You've got people running around. It's sunny. You can go to the paddock. It's a quick move back to the racetrack. It's just a really fun time. And you don't see an empty grandstand here ever. Even if the weather's bad, you see people, they show up. They love their racing. You see everything from the beginners to the most serious horse players with their forms. You see people take lounge chairs that you would bring to the beach, and they just plop them right down by the paddock on the grass and sit there and look at their form. It is a place to be in the summertime if you're in the Jersey Shore. And the key is people are having fun. It's a lot of fun, and there's always people. And it makes, for me, for example, it's a lot more fun to call races on track when you have a big group of people that are always there cheering. I also open the windows, so like you get to hear the crowd. It's a great atmosphere, really fun time.
Does the crowd noise, as it picks up, does that make anything happen inside of your voice to then kind of increase the moment? Does that really kind of feed into it?
Absolutely, it can feed into it. I mean, I've called cards here that are a lot of claiming races, main claimers on a certain day, like a Friday, and it just enhances your experience more, and it enhances the ability to want to call well. And it also just makes you call better because you hear the crowd in it, and it takes away from the fact that, yeah, every race does matter to people. That's why you want to do as good of a job as you can every single race. But it helps you stay up because people are excited, and it's like anything in life. That energy that people or folks or groups bring, it can really have an effect on you. And it does as a race caller when you hear people having a good time, screaming for their horses. Haskell's a whole different story. Haskell, every year it seems like the announcer is really raising his voice, and I never understood why. And then when I did it last year, I understood, because when you close the windows, it's harder to see. So you really here in this booth have to open the windows to call the race, and it's like you're right there with the crowd, and it is so darn loud. When Idiomatic and Sullivan Angel went head-and-head in the Molly Pitcher last year, we had a real younger crowd last year, a lot of college-age kids, and it was just a lot of beginners. So they didn't understand. It's like when the gates open, you don't have to scream as loud as you can right away. And they just went on. Like as soon as the gates open, everybody just started screaming. And I ran down to Dr. Angelo Cinicci's office, who is our track doctor. And I said, do you have any cotton balls? And I put the cotton balls in my ear because I didn't have any earplugs. It's like if a musician's on stage and everybody's screaming, they got that in their ear to sort of be able to hear themselves. And it was the same thing for me. I just couldn't hear myself without those cotton balls. So I'm going to bring some earplugs this year, if need be. Yeah, it's going to be a really fun time, but I'm expecting it to be really loud too. So I'm going to come prepared this year.
There's got to be a track announcer watching this or listening to this going, just thinking how jealous they are, Matt. That's so cool. No, what a great problem. Seriously, there's so much energy, so much noise. This is a fantastic problem. Yeah. All right. So I'm going to have, let's go ahead and brainstorm the different horses winning the Haskell, what your call should be. Like no fact check needed, journalism wins, or what a home run, Gosger wins the Haskell, like something like that. Like, where do you think we're leaning it? Do you like the no fact check for journalism? Is that a good one?
Yeah, I think that's a good one. But I usually try not to script the races I call.
No, you don't.
They're authentic. So, yeah, I just remember Timberlake, the first $1 million race I ever called was the Rebel, and Timberlake was running in it. And they wanted all these in-sync references, the general public. And I said, it's not happening. Like, I'm not going to say bye to the competition. We're not saying that. That's going to be the corniest race call on a grade 2 race, the corniest race call on a $1 million race we've ever heard. So it's not happening. So I don't know if journalism wins, if we have to talk about writing or what. I don't know. What's going to come is going to come. But yeah, I feel like it'd be a disservice too if you didn't give it some spice, you know.
All right, well, he's Matt Dinerman. He'll be on the call there at Monmouth Park. I'm going to show up on Friday, by the way, all day for racing. So I'm going to be there.
Oh, very good.
All day. I will get my groove back in your sofa in the colors in the announcer booth on Friday ahead of Saturday to be ready. So very excited about that. At 3 Colt.
Jersey Shore is a great race, by the way. This year,
not unexcited. I'm very excited to be there for
Jersey Shore. Bookham Dano ran in the Jersey Shore last year and won, and this year we've got a gunmetal. We've got Neo Equos, and it's gonna be a good race. So
there you go. We'll all be there Friday for Neo Equos. All right, Matt.
We appreciate
it. Donut God's the one I'm excited about.
Oh, there we go. Okay. All right. A little short talk. Why not? All right, Matt. We'll see you Friday and Saturday, buddy.
All right, guys. Thanks. Looking forward to seeing you.
From Golden Gate Fields to calling grade 1s in Arkansas and Monmouth. Why not? Let's go. I love it so much. It's interesting talking about that day, and he's right. Something he pointed out that really stood out to me last year, Sean, it's something we talked about on this podcast, is how young the Haskell is.
Yeah.
College.
It's always been like that.
Yeah, and it has that feel, and it makes sense once you hear from him, hey, regular Friday, regular Saturday, fans are in the stands. Well, it makes sense if you grew up 20, 25 years old, broke, go to the Haskell, then you get a job, and then you can actually afford to have fun with the races. It stands out that you want to head to Monmouth on the weekends. It is a different spot. So people are listening and they're in Philly or New York or whatever, or New Jersey, even haven't been on Haskell weekend. I think even Friday would be a lot of fun this year, Sean.
Yeah. I mean, it's always a fun atmosphere to go to Monmouth, but especially around that weekend, because, Jersey Shore is right down the road. So you have a lot of people that are in town for that, and you got some racing going on, and people are visiting from out of town potentially. They want to go see the races because it might just be something new for them. But it's always been a younger kind of college age, especially in the apron. It's always filled with college age kids out there having a good old time, and it's one of the most fun atmospheres. That's why I praised it so much earlier in the show. It's always one of the most fun atmospheres of racing that you can go to every single year. It's just, there's something about that track when they get a full crowd that's just unlike really any other racetrack that I go to throughout the year.
Sometimes the crowd energy is more than the quality of racing, or vice versa. Haskell seems to be a good marriage of both. You get very high.
Yeah. And it seems like the undercard races in the last few years have really kind of picked up as far as quality. It seems like a lot of trainers are really starting to point to some of those undercard races as well.
Yeah. I mean, when you're talking about grade 3s and you're running them for $400,000 and $600,000, like that kind of stuff, I mean, like, it's going to draw the right people.
You had champion Idiomatic running in a grade 3 last year, and she beats out by a head the future champion female sprinter. That's a grade 3 race, and it was one of the best races of the year. We did at BloodHorse, we ranked our top 10 races at the end of the year, and I know I put the Molly Pitcher in there, as I think it was in my top 5 potentially, because it was such a great race, even though it was a grade 3. So that's the kind of quality that we're starting to get on that card every year now.
There you go. All right. Well, let's bring in Frank Angst. Frank, do you have a favorite Haskell memory?
Oh, I mean, that's pretty easy. I was there for American Fair.
Oh, you. Awesome.
I want to sound boastful, but that was just another level of excitement, and just great to see him continue right off the Triple Crown. So
that American Pharaoh Haskell, my favorite moment was that move that he made when he went past competitive edge and took the lead. Just 60,000 people screaming at the same time when he made that move. That was an experience unlike anything else.
We passed out glasses that day. I still have it, and it's a nice beer glass, beer type, whatever you want to drink out of it, milk, water.
There you go.
It's all the print held up on a lot of those glasses. The print kind of fades because I use it. I didn't just put it up on the mantle or anything.
My
we
wife
actually use it. It's in the rotation.
Yeah, my wife grabs all the Oaks Lily cups and just uses those every day. So we've got a rotation of 100 of those. Just uses over and over. Well, we say goodbye to Sean Collins for a segment to bring on Pat Brown. He'll join us now from up there at Saratoga. He'll be heading up the Racing and Gaming Conference at Saratoga in just a few short weeks. Pat Brown, how are you, sir?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
No, thanks for jumping on. I wanted Frank to sit in on this one, but let's start there. I was just at Nickel G, as the cool kids call it here, the National Conference of Legislators from Gaming States here in Louisville downtown, and caught up with my friend Matt Rybeltowski, probably a name that you know as well. But I know what we were talking about at that one. What is the main topic on the docket there in August at Saratoga?
Well, we have 12 panels spread over 3 days, August 11th through the 13th. The first panel is going to be very interesting. It's on immigration, changes in the immigration laws and how those affect the hospitality industry, particularly racetracks and casinos. We've got Gary Contessa is on that panel as a trainer with a small stable, and he's going to talk about just every day how to deal with immigration issues with his employees. And Gary's been at it a long time, 4 decades, I think, and he should provide a really good overview of really what the practical impact is of when the folks in Washington decide to change the immigration rules, or at least how they enforce them. So that should be a real interesting panel. And then on the last day, on Wednesday, we have a panel on decoupling and what's happening in Florida and where that's going in other places in the country, and whether that is like a passing phase, or whether that's really here and going to be kind of a perennial issue for a while. We've got some horsemen on that panel and some lawyers to talk about what happened in Florida, what's likely to happen next legislative session in Florida, and then how that issue is kind of percolating around the country.
But I think one of the nice things about this conference is the overall topics are outlined, and then oftentimes there's discussion of how the nuts and bolts of making things happen that racing wants to happen. I guess on the decoupling issues, we saw a big victory for the sport in Florida, but I'm with you. I think this topic is going to rear its head again. I just reading the tea leaves. What do you think will be some of the things that are emphasized for people to be thinking about as I kind of expect this battle to continue?
Well, I'm old enough and have been in the racing policy game long enough to know and to have participated in the arguments 40 years ago when VLTs and slot machines were first introduced at the racetracks. And it was a pitched battle. There were people in the industry then who were dead set against it, saying this is going to lead to the demise of horse racing, because it will be an artificial propping up of purses, and it won't be sustainable. Now, 40 years, that's pretty sustainable. I mean, I would say that it's had a pretty good run, but now it's a different world. It's a much different world gaming landscape. Horse racing is not the only game in town, or even the prettiest girl at the dance anymore. And states are really going to look at whether it's the right policy choice to use the revenue that now is very much established in those states from VLTs and from casino taxes and the rest of it, and whether it's the right policy to be using that revenue on purses and on racetracks. We have a lot of legislators at this conference from all over the country, and we actually even have a legislative panel on the last day as well. And I'm sure we're going to hear quite a bit from the legislators on where the pressure is coming from in the capitals on whether or not the revenues from these other types of gaming are going to stay in place.
And that's what's so nice about this conference is the attendees can find out about these issues, and the ones that care about horse racing can try to stay a step ahead of these things, because obviously it's a tremendous amount of revenue going into purses, going to tracks from the added gaming. Another, like you said, in the 40 years of this conference and its evolution itself, there's been so many changes on the gaming side. One of the biggest, of course, has been the sports wagering. And I know there's a panel that's going to look at how racing can build off of the sports wagering popularity. I know that is one that I'm looking forward to. Why was that important for you to get on the list?
Well, this has always been looming out there once sports betting was authorized and made legal in the various states. Like in New York, the original legislation actually prohibited sports books from offering wagering on horse racing. That was where the mindset was when the bill was originally. It was a protectionist move and policy to protect an incumbent established gaming vertical. But it really was the wrong choice, because you have to marry both of them. I think we're finding that in a lot of places you've got to go to the customer, and the customer wants both horse racing and sports betting, and they don't want to have to switch apps, and they want it to be seamless. And they don't understand why it isn't. Now, pros in the game understand that it's a completely different thing, pari-mutuel, fixed odds, and it's not easy. It's not easy to offer both and make it seamless, but I think that's the future. I think that you open the eyes of new customers if you get your horse racing product on a sports betting platform. Simple as that.
I think it's the future as well, and I'm glad that this conference continues to hammer on it. Frankly, I think racing's already too far behind on it. We knew it was coming. More should have been done, that we were ready right when this launched. Regular readers of my Dollars and Cents column know how I feel, but we can't change the past. So I appreciate that this conference is going to put it out there again. There have been some strides made. FanDuel, DraftKings, they are promoting it more for sure. And if you have one app, they promote the other app. I know FanDuel has the common wallet. So I want to give credit where credit's due. But, boy, I sure would like to see horse racing offered as a fixed odds wager on the same site that everybody's using to bet the Super Bowl.
And Pat, I want to ask you about that, because you're going to have, this ADW, a piece on ADWs on Wednesday. Is that something you expect to be part of that conversation as well?
Oh, sure. And that ADW panel is going to be interesting, because something so basic as where is a bet made is the question, and we're still arguing about that in regulators and in the courts, and you would have thought that that answer would have been pretty well, decided by now, but it certainly hasn't. And this conference started as a conference for New York lawyers, right? It was put on by the law school, and this is kind of my throwback to the old panels where this will appeal to the lawyers who are a large part of the people who come to the conference, but it will also appeal to non-lawyers because it's just a fascinating question, and it really needs to get answered definitively, so that because there's ripples from which side you land on. I mean, obviously, if Michigan's right and the bet's made where the person places it, well, then their rules apply. And if Twin Spires is right, then Oregon's rules will apply where their servers are located. I mean, pretty important to figure that out, So anyway, I think this is like one of those panels that has a legal aspect to it, but also appeals to non-lawyers, which is what I try to do when I make the panels.
Yeah, it covers the topics and then covers the legal issues. It's like you have the arguments on which way racing should go on things and which way gaming, but we're most concerned about the racing here.
Yeah.
And then somebody has to write down and write the rule and get agreement on the rule, which comes up a lot of times. So the conference is August 11th through 13th at Saratoga Hilton. One of the other topics is the Triple Crown plans going forward. Always a hot topic. How did that come together?
Well, I forget the name of the horse now. When the Kentucky Derby winner didn't go to the Preakness, there's a lot of conversation in that week, right? Or 2 weeks coming up to the Preakness, and during that time, we were putting together the panels. We were trying to, and we landed on that thinking, that's going to be interesting to really have that conversation, because it's like a lot of things in horse racing and the gaming world. People have conversations past each other, and there's no actual discussion. It's just and that's what I felt the Triple Crown conversation looked like to me, is some really smart people saying, well, no, of course you can't change it, it has to stay the same, and then equally smart people saying it can't possibly stay the same. So that and we've got Steve Chris, a solid traditionalist, wants to keep the Triple Crown the way it is. We have Bill Finley, and a sort of newer convert to maybe we ought to look at this thing. And then we've got actual guys who won the Kentucky Derby. We got Kenny McPeak as a trainer, and then Terry Finley as an owner. So we're going to cover the bases there and get a lot of different points of view, because as I say, there are really, really compelling arguments on both sides of this thing.
Good
Racing,
stuff for sure. And
racingandgamingsaratoga.com, by the way, for everything happening in August. Go ahead, Frank. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to kind of read my mind, because I was going to say BloodHorse plans extensive coverage, but if people want to get signed up to attend, how do they do that?
Oh yeah, if you go to the website, Racing and Gaming Saratoga .com, there is a registration there and a place you can book your hotel room. And I do want to mention that we have very serious topics here that we've been discussing, but we also have some fun. We have a nice big welcome party at the Adelphi Hotel in Saratoga, a beautiful venue, very historic. The ghost of Mark Twain floats around there. He used to sit on the front porch. And then on Wednesday, after the conference ends at noon, we would take a group to the track. So it's not all panels. It's we try to make room for some fun and some time for people to actually, talk in a less formal atmosphere. So.
Well, Pat, we appreciate it very much. Again, go check them out at the website, racingandgamingsaratoga.com, to get all the information. August 11 through 13 up there in upstate New York. Pat, thanks for jumping on, buddy. We'll talk to you soon, I'm sure.
All right. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Good seeing you.
No problem at all. There you go. Pat Brown with us. Frank, anything stand out? I always like these segments because it at least gives me a day where I'm like, okay, people are at least talking about these things. At least there's conversations, decoupling. And I mean, some of these are like unbelievably huge issues. It's one thing to talk about fixed odds. It's another thing to talk about decoupling.
Yeah, I went through the agenda and it was really caught my eye for sure that they're very timely issues. Immigration's the first topic of the entire panel. So it started out as a production of Albany. Well, I don't know if production's the right word, but it was tied to Albany Law School, and Patrick took it over a few years ago. So it has that law tradition, so that there'll be some discussion from that angle, but there's also open discussion on these topics overall, and what's the best path for the industry. And, that's where everybody's coming from to make it work for the industry. And sometimes there's divergent views on what is best for the industry. So those things have to be settled, and then you have to settle the best way of making that a reality. And like he said, just the chance to kick around and talk with people and understand where people are at is so important.
12 credits of continuing education up for grabs there at Saratoga. How about that?
But yeah, your co-host, Sean Collins, will be covering it for the first time. And we have Teresa Gennaro up there who'll be helping us out as well. So the panels that we mentioned on here, we plan to cover all of those. So good stuff.
And Frank, can't let you go without asking you what's going on the website and the magazine. What's going on right now?
Yeah, the Japan sale is huge today from a U.S. angle because there were 3 Flightline yearlings offered. They averaged over $1 million once I did the conversion from yen, which is just like a pinball machine number or something. I don't know what yen is. It's not an easy translation, but yeah, they came out over $1 million. So that's more good news for Flightline. Imagine that. As good as he was on the track, he's kind of clearing every hurdle. Weanling sales last year, yearling sales this year, getting closer to that racing test next year. So very good indicator for him, and it'll be more exciting as the yearling sales over here start to see some Flightlines pop up. So that's a good thing to monitor and have fun with. And half the Forever Young did very well, and John Stewart had a big purchase. Kitasan Black, a sire that stands in Japan, did very, very well. So good stuff there.
It's fun, and we've talked about it on the show. It's fun to watch the Japanese side of things as it develops, because we are on an island in how we do dirt racing in this country. And so adding a circuit like Japan that's willing to go along with us is not a small thing, I think, moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, that's for sure. That is a good observation for sure, to have them in the fold on the dirt side. Big difference. And yeah, just a lot racing heavy this time of year. We have Sean up in Saratoga along with Bob Hall. Teresa's up there. So good team. Karen Johnson's up there. So we really have a ton of coverage from Saratoga. Bob Ehold will be attending the Haskell at Monmouth Park, so he'll be covering that entire card. So yeah, we're in the thick of racing, and Del Mar's right on the horizon. So it's a racing heavy time of year at BloodHorse, that's for sure.
And once Sean and I are on the grounds, we'll throw a video up at bloodhorse.com, our little preview horse by horse of the Haskell Stakes itself kind of a continuation of BloodHorse Monday as well. So plenty of coverage of the biggest races. Of course, you can find all of it at bloodhorse.com. Thanks, Frank. We'll talk to you next week, bud.
Thanks, Louie.
There you go. All right, Frank Angst in the library there at BloodHorse. We bring back our guy, Sean Collins, who's up at Saratoga. I'm going on the left. Make sure you do subscribe to BloodHorse Magazine. Of course, right now is that Memorial Edition for Dwayne Lucas. And so if you're interested in getting that one, go right now. QR code at the bottom of the screen. If you happen to be watching us on YouTube or on Spotify, you can go and get it that way. If you ever wanted to know what Sean looks like, that's the best way to find out, is to watch us on YouTube or Spotify. It's disappointing, but you can find out.
And you get to see Louie's attempt at a mustache too.
Attempt at a mustache. That's exactly right. Not all of us have dark hair like you, and I'm not going to dye things just to dye them. I'm not doing it. Not doing it. No, I'm going to live with my. Some people have salt and pepper. I have salt and salt. You understand me?
So the hair on top of your head's not dyed to look like your skin?
It is not.
That's what I thought we were doing here.
It is not. Nope. No hair dye for me. I'm just living with skin everywhere. It's essentially it. And then what did Illman call this thing last week? You got a dirty upper lip or something like that. So
yeah.
There you go. But again, go check out the magazine at BloodHorse. BloodHorse.com. Nice tab at the top there for the magazine as well, if you happen to be listening on another service, but certainly use the QR code at the bottom of the screen. We'll wrap here, Sean. Appreciate you, buddy. Enjoy Saratoga. I will see you on Saturday at the Haskell. When do you arrive in Eatontown?
I should get there that morning. I unfortunately am not going to be able to make the Friday card, but I should be there. Probably. I usually try to make it fairly early in the morning, catch a little bit of training before the races start. Good enough. Well, we will see journalism there. Thanks to Aron Wellman from Eclipse Thoroughbred Partners for joining us earlier in the show. Matt Dinerman, who will be calling the races, and of course, Pat Brown from the Saratoga racing and wagering event as well there. So there you go. All right, Sean, busy episode, a fun one. I will see you on Saturday, my bud, and we'll call it a quits here on BloodHorse Monday.
The BloodHorse is dedicated to the improvement of thoroughbred breeding and racing for over 100 years. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and save BloodHorse Monday on all your platforms. For the latest news, analysis, and insights, visit us at bloodhorse.com.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.